that you're happy to be here, and I hope you understand that some of these questions will be slightly uncomfortable. But you should be okay. You're in good hands. Um, Tampa Bay, for everybody out there, how do you get to work most days? Just by raising hands. So for the people that take a car to work, can you just raise your hand? Okay. Anybody that does any of the others? Bus, transit, ride share, bike, walk, or multiple. Anybody else? All right. So everybody's driving to work. Okay. So Um, how often do any of you commute or lack of reliable transportation and it affects your job or your career? Anybody? So it goes back to the conversation we had, Patrick. It's going to be a parking problem when this city continues to grow. That's definitely the. So, gentlemen, first question I have for you is what is the biggest broken assumption in mobility technology right now and the thing being built that won't actually solve the real problem?
I kind of have a hot take on this one. So it seems like this you set the tone for starting off with hot takes and being uncomfortable. But in some cases, I believe public transportation can destroy cities. And that's not the typical response you get when people talk about public transportation.
Mayor Jane Castor, his name is Phil Michaels. I did not say his. I just want to be clear since we're on camera. Go ahead, though.
I do think that you see some of these mental health issues mostly residing in communities where there's millions to tens of millions of people residing. And this is coming from someone that's living in a high rise. So I preface this by saying I'm guilty of this as well. But I do believe it's important for people to be spread out horizontally rather than vertically. And I've seen it firsthand myself living in a high rise, but I do believe we're doing ourselves a disservice from a humanitarian perspective of allowing individuals to congregate in the same densely populated areas of a New York City, of an LA. And I think we need to get back to the horizontal communities where individuals are best served in 150. See, we got someone that's on my side. All right. Where we reside in communities of 150 people or less. And I think COVID was a blessing in disguise in this regard, where you saw individuals get to keep their New York City job, but they were able to reside in the Montanas or Colorados where they had a little bit more land and could space out a bit. And so I think that was the first time we really saw an exodus for those to implement that type of living, and I think we need more of that. So, what I mean by this, let's say for Tampa specifically, instead of trying to make everything in downtown Tampa, what if we could have a hub and spoke model where there was multiple versions of what's afforded in downtown Tampa in the suburbs, so we have an epicenter in each close vicinity rather than everyone trying to move to geographical proximity of downtown Tampa.
I was just gonna say I'd agree with that. I'm just gonna state, just moved here 6 months ago from California to Florida, but I'm not bringing any of the crap with me.
You can't
We appreciate that.
decide.
I always have to start with an apology there. But if you just look at some of the stuff that's happened in California, the train to nowhere, that's turned from 23 billion to 126 billion. Then you start to see what's happened at MTA in New York City, where you can't ride anything because you're afraid to get stabbed. It is proven time and time again that, to your point, they have to keep things safe. And the one thing I will say, moving here for the first time, the downtown area of Tampa is probably one of the most beautiful, safe locations that I've seen. So if you look at an airport, because I work closely with the Tampa Bay Airport, they're doing something right. They always win the customer satisfaction award worldwide or as far as nationwide. The city seems to be doing well set up wise. One of the things that I would say that isn't going to solve the problem that I work in the LiDAR space, basically light detection and ranging. And what's happening in a lot of the cities is they're putting in LiDAR at the street corners. And they think that's going to actually move people faster, but it hasn't been proven to do so today. So the critical infrastructure that they want to actually now put more money into isn't necessarily making the flow of traffic move any better. Your problem, in my opinion, is
Hold on. You're here now. Our problem.
our problem. Our problem, well, because I no, but I'm contributing to the problem is why I say that is because you guys were not set up to get the influx of people moving from the crazy states to Texas and to Florida. You don't have the artery,
That's true.
and that's going to be the biggest challenge. Is you people still are going to drive, and you're going to have to figure out a way to actually improve that transportation. Otherwise, it's going to be the LA 405 all over again. Yeah.
Divine insight, but also scary. So let's go ahead and go to the funding side of this, what everybody really wants to know. I'm going to be the VC today. I come and I hand you guys both. I say you have $10 million or $100 million with one condition. It has to close the mobility gap for someone who currently cannot access economic opportunity because of how or whether they can move. What do you build? Who is your first user? And who is the buyer on day one? 100 million, 10 million to 100 million.
I would go back to my original point of let's build a micro ecosystem of a multitude of versions of downtown Tampa. So instead of putting it all into one place, let's bring the city to them rather than them to the city and create an ecosystem of a horizontally driven community with phase two and phase three, a polyphasic version of micro ecosystems rather than trying to make it New York City. We don't want a New York City. We don't want an LA. Tampa has its own right, and we could set the tone for the rest of the country.
So let's, before you go, Patrick, I just want to dig into that a little bit more. So if you're looking at the micro, where are you setting this up at? Are your mini downtowns in New Tampa, Riverview? Where are these mini downtowns residing at?
And that's a great question. I believe we could use the data that we currently have of where do we have the most influx, the greatest influx of individuals coming to downtown from what communities? That's where I would start. Where are they most densely populated? Where we have the greatest level of congestion? Is it from Apollo Beach? Is it from Riverview, Valrico, wherever it may be? Let's start there and create micro ecosystems for the rest of the community and the greater Tampa Bay community.
Just real quick, if you guys don't mind shouting it out, what cities did you come from? Just speak openly. I'm going to try to take in some data points real quick. St. Pete, Tampa. What part of Tampa? We just went to Wesley Chapel. Okay, so Wesley Chapel, Newtown, Seattle. Oh, let's say that was a hell of a commute, man. You are dedicated. Oh, okay, I get it. You got West Shore. Okay, so it's kind of spread out. So I guess Phil, your data and your response. I'm sorry, Patrick, your data and your response will help Phil. So what are you doing with this 100 million?
I'd rethink Metro Transit, and I would take from all of the stuff that we see go wrong in New York City and what's happened in California and what's worked and what hasn't. We have enough data. If you make for a safe train system, I mean, if I personally, you guys, we were just talking backstage about down in St. Pete where you've got the baseball team, but nobody wants to go down and watch baseball, drive back drunk. Well, if you actually had a Metro Transit from Clearwater to, down to St. Pete and back here, and then out to maybe some of the suburbs. I think that you've got the right management in place in the city to actually kind of create the next generation of how Metro Transit should be done.
So Patrick, me and you talked about this, and so this is kind of going to be a little bit of an exclusive, and Phil, you would be included in this. One of the things we talked about, and I wonder if you guys feel this will work, and just by a show of hands, again, I'm trying to make sure this is more interactive. How many people have decided not to go somewhere because you didn't want to deal with parking? Okay. Yeah, we definitely got some here. All right. So this is what me and Phil talked about. And I'm sorry, me and Patrick. The two P's is confusing me. But me and Patrick talked about this. I'm thinking, Phil, what if we had perimeter parking garages and you had free shuttles, free cars that were sponsored or paid by for like things like Visit Tampa Bay and other organizations, and people could structurally park on the perimeters, and these cars are driving them to their locations so they're not having to worry about parking. Do you think that would help?
Well, I mean, we're starting to see that at airports just because of the threat of airports. So if you go to LA, LAX is a great example. They have 26 parking structures, but now because of the threats of everything, it's just a matter of time before somebody drives into that U-shaped area and blows half the thing up. So what they're starting to do, and you got the Olympics coming in 2028 down there. So they started to build infrastructure to where, and this is done in the Middle East and other airports as well, but you're parking further away and you don't have access to be driving a vehicle into that area, and you're going to have to take the shuttle. So if we think about just security, and I have to deal with a lot of like CBP, DHS, TSA stuff right now, we've got the Lightning Center. People can walk up to it. It's just it's a frightening kind of situation that we can be in moving forward. But I do believe that instead of just populating all of these car parks around the place, and many of them are old and outdated. I grew up in Minnesota, and some of the problems you're seeing there is that you see more ramps that are starting to collapse because the vehicles actually weigh 30% more with the battery operated vehicles. So if you look at salt over time, over 30, 40 years, you now got the undulation of cement, and they have no way of measuring that. It's just a matter of time before we see more and more of those collapse. So we could actually start to think about a safer city before some of this stuff happens. That's actually a really good idea because that's what the airports are starting.
So, Phil, with what you're saying, this would tap into a little bit of a public-private transit. Would that be comfortable for you, or is that still too much of a public transportation system?
Yeah, we could definitely work with that.
Okay.
It's a good starting place.
I just wanted to get his approval on camera because we're going to make sure he moves forward with us. Okay. So, guys, with the platform is stacked, what AI capability, data standard, or policy change in the next 18 months would do more to democratize mobility than anything else? And who benefits the most if that happens?
We're doing this right now. So, I don't know how much they knew about my bio coming in, but I'm coming from the private jet space, and we're trying to democratize private jet usage. And so what we've seen since COVID is there was a 25% increase in jet usage due to COVID. People did not want to fly commercial anymore, if you remember that time period with the masks and everything. And even last year, it's increased another 12%. And so we're one of the few jet companies in the world that do what we do. And with our empty leg app, we're the only ones in the world that do what we do. And to Michael's point, we're democratizing this transport using a different model. So uh, there's 5 ways to fly private. One of those ways is called empty legs. And so when we go to pick up our jet owners, our jet customers, on the way there, the jet's empty. Those empty legs cost jet companies like us a lot of money. So most jet companies tried to solve this problem by creating an empty leg app where they'd sell you a seat on that empty leg and they'll charge you a couple grand. But it's never really worked. One, because people don't want to sit with strangers. That's the whole point of flying private. And two, they don't want to pay a couple grand for a last minute trip they weren't even planning on taking. So we decided, let's just give away all of our empty legs for free. We'll just charge you a 3 grand a year membership, but the flight's free. It's never been done before. And we don't just give you a seat. We give you the whole jet to yourself. So all your friends and family are free. And that has allowed people to fly private that would never normally be able to afford flying private. Because one flight alone from Tampa to New York, let's say, would be about 20 grand one way. So you can imagine getting unlimited free flights for 3 grand a year is unheard of, but it's allowing us to reach the base of the pyramid and those that might not have been able to fly private previously.
A fun fact with that, you didn't know this about me, but I actually had a company called Streamjet where we tried to do this 14 years ago and we couldn't get people to understand the benefit of it. And also people were like, well, how do I get back? Well, you just saved 20 grand, buy a one-way flight back. Leave me alone.
That's actually that's been our biggest challenge. And so I started doing social media content to educate the consumer on what is an empty leg. Because most people think, wait, that sounds too good to be true. It must be a scam. So we've had to educate people on what an empty leg is, how it works. And then two, what are the private jet airports? So normally when people are scrolling, because it's free to download our app to scroll to see the cities. But when they see Teterboro, New Jersey, they don't know what Teterboro, New Jersey is, not knowing that's New York City's private jet airport. Opelika is Miami's private jet airport. Van Nuys is LA's private jet airport. So we're having to educate consumers that there's about 500 commercial airports, There's over 5,000 private airports. So there's a lot more options to choose from.
That's the one in West Palm Beach where Oprah Winfrey and all them are at.
Well, the area over there that a lot of people are migrating to, the exodus from California, like Patrick has taken, is Indian Creek Island area. But a lot of them fly into PBI or Opalaka will suffice. But Tampa alone has four. We have VDF in North Tampa. We have Tampa Airport, which has its own private jet entrance behind the International Mall. We have PIE in St. Pete. We have Peter O'Knight. So there's a lot of options to choose from, even right here in Tampa Bay.
Patrick, I wanted you to go ahead and interject before
Yeah, so I am going to subscribe now, but you're also crapping on my business by saying the airports because I work in the airport space. So no, but in all honesty, what happened about 10 years ago with the advent of LiDAR, actually, we were the first to actually take LiDAR out of the autonomous driving vehicle. We brought it into Denver Airport. We fused three of them together, and we saw that this was going to be the next big.
hold on, Patrick. I'm not going to do this injustice. Do you guys know what LiDAR is, or would you like a brief explanation before we move forward with that? Explanation? Thank you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I
Go ahead.
apologize.
No, it's okay. It's my fault.
It's the main technology used for autonomous driving vehicles, and it is different from cameras, and cameras are 2D, LiDAR is 3D. When you fuse them together, you get a 3D world. So if I put two sensors on in here, I could look top down on this world. So it took several years to actually sell this in and change the industry. So I did a 7-year deal with the Tampa International Airport because I need an airport and they needed to be innovators. So we did this deal. I moved from California here, and now we're building these applications across the airport. So what is coming about from all of this is that people that sell into airports, and we measure bathrooms and we measure underwing, and this company does concessions, those are all going away. The companies that actually are doing enterprise platform across the entire ecosystem with telemetry data coming out of the back of it, measured by artificial intelligence, is going to be managing the airport of the future. And that's actually happening as we speak. And that's going out to the ramp and then out to the runway. We've got a solution that actually would have stopped the LaGuardia incident that happened about 3 weeks.
So let's pause it there. Talking to you, because if I can get you to understand it, I think everybody else has to understand it. So do you figure it out so far, or do you want me to break it down from a nerd level? See, look, she got it. You got it. Everybody. So for the people out there that's listening, just imagine you have these sensors that turn everything in the airport into a Sims automated information. And what Patrick has the capability of doing is tracking every single element. So not only does it help there, and this is slightly off topic, but I thought it was so powerful when we had our conversation, it can also help with human trafficking because it can track people and groups of people and how they move. So
Yeah, it's a great example. I wasn't even thinking about that one, but Universal, we're doing a MSA with Universal Worldwide right now. And to give you an example, I can see a family that comes in together. You got mom and dad, brother and sister. Well, if you stack them on top of each other, they actually create a certain height. And then if you take the widths of the shoulders of each of them, we can then color them red. And so then the next family comes in and we'll color them blue. Bad actor comes in and grabs the hand of little child or little Sandy and starts to pull them away. We can actually detect that they're not part of the family unit. We also can integrate with the camera system and point the camera system on the perpetrator. But to your point, the world that's coming, and this is hard. We had to rebuild our platforms 3 times, and we've been doing this for 10 years once we got into the Tampa airport. But to the point of what's coming is, think of Google Earth with live assets all around it. And so Tampa's in the lead. We're probably 5 years ahead of the second in place, and it's out of Paris, France. We're the only ones in the United States, so we have 7 of the top 30 airports so far. But all of that is going to change the game in the airport space, make it safer. In fact, I'll tell you one more thing. With LiDAR and AI, and a lot of people don't know this, but this is a frightening thing that happens. Once you get from land side to sterile side, we're seeing people throw objects from land side to sterile side. We've actually caught people that were throwing things such as a bullet from in Denver airport from land side to sterile side. We track the bullet in the air that's being thrown to the perpetrator on the other side. And from there, we can turn the camera on the perpetrator and highlight the guy that did it in red. So those are things that when you start talking about AI and what's coming and mobility, the mobility of being able to get into the airport faster, move through the airport faster, move through it safer, be on the tarmac with less injuries, slips and falls, less bare metal events that where collisions happen, and then prevent things that are out on the runway, if you will. Yeah.
And I don't people understand the magnitude of what Patrick's technology is going to do. I mean, this is potentially going to make Tampa's airport the safest in the world. I mean, the air traffic control issues that you're seeing all across the country and the world, I mean, potentially eliminating that completely as a result of his technology. And he was nice enough to bring it to Tampa first. I mean, this is something we should all be proud of and very excited about. Coming from the aviation space, what he's doing with his technology is going to save a lot of lives.
Let me also state that DFW lost to Tampa. So it was between DFW and Tampa ended up out negotiating and winning the contract with us. And then one of the executives from DFW came to work for my company.
And everybody that didn't show up on time today lost on this information. So one of the things I want to add, Phil, is the premise of private aviation, where a lot of people might be missing it from mobility, is also economic impact. So can you kind of speak on how, with your private aviation and the goals of how you're working with that, how does that impact, I would say, the luxury and the additional revenue that you're actually adding to this ecosystem by having people flying here and also going to other locations?
Sure, there's a lot of people that use private jets simply for business purposes. They don't even allow themselves to use it for personal because they don't want their families and children to be spoiled and get used to flying private. So there are some of our customers that have parameters for their own family to use it, which is strictly business use. And we have other customers that say, for business use, I'm going to fly economy. And for my family, I want to splurge and show them a great experience. So we have a mix of both, but that economic development that happens as a positive externality from individuals using it for business, being able to fly to places they normally wouldn't be able to get to, or they have to deal with layovers or cancellations in the commercial space, really affords them another opportunity to do business quicker, especially in the commercial real estate world where you have multiple properties you need to check in on across different state lines, or law firms that have to fly lawyers in and out of different court cases. So we've seen a lot of influx of the economic development as a result of being able to get to certain places at a um, in a faster way. But also, I usually get that call when someone's stuck in a layover and like, Phil, I'm so sick of flying commercial. It's time. I'm going to pull the trigger and become a member of your app.
And I think that's one of the biggest thing is that economic impact, and also with the premise of mobility, a lot of people will think about just cars. But the way you move people and the way you start to move money and the safety will start to shape an economy in a whole different way. So if I'm giving a signal to everybody, the signal point is, how do you make an economic impact as this great word shapes a city in a way a city has never been shaped, which Miami could have used this, but they failed at that opportunity.
Well, and that's why we started Founders Jet. So the empty leg app is Vaunt, but for Founders Jet, that's specifically for business owners and founders that didn't previously have an option for them. So that's where we really target those individuals that are trying to make an impact. And our whole message is, I'm a huge believer that entrepreneurs are what change the world. They create a different life for how we live as consumers, how their employees live, and the ripple effect that they have. So our mission is to help entrepreneurs lead a different life so they can impact others in a positive way.
And see, to me, that's the art of storytelling, because there would be a miscomponent to think this is just something for the Instagram and the TikTokers and the rich. You actually have a deeper underline of what this mobility means to you. So you're giving people the opportunity. Hey, you have to get to that quick meeting. You can't afford, or you don't have the time, or you're not going to make that flight. You're pulling up to the tarmac. You're getting right on it. You're going to make your money and you're coming back.
Absolutely. And we build it into the point of sale. So we actually educate a 0 to 6 year old child with every flight as well. So we're not just talking about it, we're being about it.
I think that's brilliant. I think I just, first of all, I love it. One of the first things that I wanted to do is get involved with the community here, which is how we got in touch with each other. And then I joined the Plant City Development Group Council. So all of those things, but to give something away and to give something back and do good makes me rethink, the ways in which I can actually incorporate some of those things into our business as well.
It's a beautiful strategy. And before we move into kind of our interactive workshop part, is there any questions from the audience right now? Nothing else. All right. Okay, we got two. So we'll go here and I'm going to come to you next. Go ahead. And I'm assuming when you say cities, we kind of want to emulate a model. We're looking at the overall perspective of mobility, the whole thing. I think that's a great question.
I think you guys, I mean, just look at the Tampa airport. They win customer satisfaction every year. So they've done it right. I just moved here. I live downtown. Um, Safe, beautiful, don't feel in danger. I haven't seen any other city that's done it as well as you guys. Why doesn't Tampa be the model?
I actually have lived in Dubai, lived in Nigeria. I've spent time in nearly 50 countries, and people always ask me, why is Tampa my favorite city in the world to live? And it's geographical proximity. You can get to pretty much whatever you want within a 15, 20-minute radius from downtown, whether it's sports, musicals, plays, concerts, the airport, beaches, nightlife, whatever you want is within a 15, 20-minute radius from downtown. I haven't seen that in any other city I've ever been. And the weather is gorgeous too, so that doesn't hurt.
You didn't ask me, but I'm going to answer. I think, like they're saying, a lot of people don't realize that Tampa is a masterpiece that also appears to be a blank canvas, right? So it's one of those things. If it was hanging up in a museum, you might see it and be like, "What is this?" But it's whatever you're going to make it. We just need the proper curators to tell the story that take pride that we don't want to replicate another city. We want to build our own identity because trying to replicate also comes with the failures that they went through because most people won't admit to their failures. So when you start building, you fall into those same sinkholes. So I think I haven't seen this. I get excited due to the fact that I live here versus most cities. I think you start to feel a burnout after 3 to 5 years, especially when you're innovating at this level. It becomes exhaustive, but this place is wide open. This is a ground zero that's actually at a whole nother level, but they're just not telling. We haven't optimized the storytelling because visit Tampa Bay, visit Clearwater State Beach. Those are models for how people want to run their tourism. So we actually are the model. We just don't get the credit because we don't have the flashy money that a lot of other cities. We have old money, but we just don't have brickle cocaine cowboys money like Miami. We just don't. So if you had a couple of more Ferraris and Porsches and Lamborghinis consistently on the streets, it would change our image. That's just not who Tampa is.
Now, is that what Brickell's known for?
Brickell, not only is that what it's known for, Brickell at one point, fun fact, the banks on Brickell were primarily built for the cocaine cowboys. At one point, the US Federal Reserve, just for Miami, had more money than all Federal Reserves combined.
And when I go down there, I like to stay in Brickell.
Just go and don't drive a car and don't drop your wallet. It's not as safe there. It's like you said, living here, the one thing I don't fear is if I leave the house and I left my door unlocked. In Miami, and my business partner can attest to this, if I unlock my door, I would turn around and drive 45 minutes home to lock my door. It's a different level of safety. So I definitely feel that. Go ahead. So hold on, just for the listeners and for we're recording this, we're basically looking at AI, cybersecurity, and the vulnerabilities of everything we're speaking of right now.
Yeah, the one benefit that we have is that, when you start talking about AI and when you get the government involved, it's basically AI looking across data that's everywhere. Well, it all comes through our enterprise platform. So we own it. No one has access to it. So the benefit that we have is not only where we're at today by being able to have 38 SKUs across an entire airport with huge ARR and run the entire airport, but it's contained data. So the next opportunity is really about 2 years from now, where you can't move airport data, and it sits in our system, so no one has access to it. So much like healthcare, you're going to have federated AI. So now I can reach in to each of the airports and I can stir around data and I can actually pull out stats. And then that's going to be the marketplace. That's going to be the next big growth wave after the infra AI plays out. But the benefit that we have is we own the data, and if data is the new oil, then we're Texas. Yeah.
I don't know if this is the correct term, but from what I learned from my father, isn't it almost like more of a closed circuit SOC? You're pretty much your own security operations center.
We are.
So you would have to break in again just to make it happen. So it's like redundancy proof for cybersecurity at that point.
And nobody has access to our data, so we own it. Now, if anybody wants access to it, they have to pay for it. Yeah.
And on your side, Phil, did you want to respond? Okay.
Yeah. No, I know. Yep. Yeah. You're you're preaching to the choir on this stuff because the problem you have in a market that's developing, it's going to be anywhere there's a camera today, I would say is going to be supplemented or displaced by LiDAR in the future. So if you look at the total available market, um, you can get shiny ball syndrome really fast. And so our competitor, they raised $45 million. I just did friends and family and built the company off that. Um, what they tried to do is because they had to support all of their board members in trying to make money as fast as possible. So they didn't become masters of anything. We said we were going to be the best at airports. We were going to focus in on airports. And when you do that, you've got police, fire department, trains, buses, planes, people, all of the stuff that you need for a smart city. Then Universal came calling and I didn't want to work with them because the total available market was 8 parks and there's 4,000 airports. So we kept pushing them up, and then they came back, and then we started talking about some of the safety and security things, to your point, right? And child trafficking, because we have to deal with that in airports as well. But we can only move so fast right now, and our biggest problem is hiring. We're trying to hire to keep up, but to your point on safety, the other thing you want to think about is that I can detect, for example, if there is a shooting, I can detect just from the disbursement of human beings and the velocity, and it's kind of like ants on a table. I can point a camera on it. But how do you go upstream? How do you actually fix that problem before they get there? And so this is where, I look at the stadium right near me. We have something called an actuated bollard system. And we had built that specifically for the train industry for Brightline. And so what it does is it basically, think of it as train and a fence, and all of a sudden I can see that there are children around there and I can actuate that fence to go up. And they need to build that for stadiums because now you need to build 2 levels of security to go into a stadium, in my opinion. You got the one at the ticket, and then if someone starts to breach that with a backpack, you actuate the bollard system to come up. And so those things are becoming available as we speak, as some of the stuff that we're building, but we're not there yet, and we can only move so fast. If I had a team of 200 people, we could then break it out into sections. But I don't know how to fix that for schools yet. It all starts with social media. And unfortunately, my boss at AOL created the buddy list. So that whole SMS, the buddy list, all of that, I lived in that world. And so that was the beginning of Instagram, Facebook, SMS. And that's where the problem really starts. They're inciting people.
It's better to understand the catalyst and the chain reaction. So if you understand the catalyst, you get to a better problem. So we're going to do a little bit what we call like an interactive workshop. So I'm going to put the pressure on you. You just need to pick a number 1 through 5. 4? Okay. So this is the task for you guys. So we're making them think on the fly. They did get this in advance, but they didn't know which route we were going to go. So we wanted you to kind of see how entrepreneurs and founders think when they're building at this level. So your client today, is a remote tech worker in St. Pete trying to get to Tampa co-working space without a car. I'm gonna repeat that one more time. A remote tech worker in St. Pete trying to get to a Tampa co-working space without a car. So we got somebody in St. Pete trying to get to Embark Collective today. Okay.
They have money?
Well, the question is, what is the single biggest friction point in this person's mobility store?
Well, I mean, personally, for me, I'd take an Uber.
Okay.
I mean, I defaulted. I haven't taken a taxi in 5, 6 years.
Phil.
We have an app for that.
Here we go. Let's get to it.
PIE to Tampa, and he'll be here in about 7 minutes.
Get me a little bit more about it. What is that? What are we talking about now?
Taking a jet.
So go up and come down. All right.
Shameless plug.
Well, I do think it's going to be, eVTOLs at some point, but that's going to be, I mean, if I look at DFW Airport, they're building a big car structure with an eVTOL on top of it. So for big cities like that, that's great. But I think that the Ubers, or what you were talking about earlier, I see here at Tampa, I see all these new Teslas driving around. What is that? It's different.
I do know that Freebie has
Oh, it is?
Teslas, but I think they're more so in St. Pete. I don't think they made it here yet, but they might be able to
Yeah,
come that far.
they have the yellow Teslas here in downtown. It's a free ride for those that are local. Yeah, and we have Waymo.
Okay.
And I don't, you go to Phoenix and there's Waymos all over the place. I haven't talk about Tampa doing it right, right? You've got now multiple selections or options to get around. So you've got the Waymos, you've got this new free ride, whatever it was called, and then you've got Ubers. I haven't seen that in any other city.
So with that combination of technology, data, and policy of knowing how it could impact our ecosystem, the question to you gentlemen is, who pays for this solution? Should it be a city government, employer, federal grant, a private company, or a combination? So if we have a budget line to make this happen,
Well, if it's Mondami, when then nobody pays for it.
so
Yeah, without getting too political, I've worked with governments, nonprofits, and for-profits, and I'll choose for-profits all day. And I think when your own money is on the line and you have skin in the game, you make sure it's working.
now you weren't on our conversation, and me and Patrick got to talking. I think that's very interesting. You're saying for profit, or so do you feel this becomes a for profit trust or fund that invests directly into mobility issues, and you kind of have a board of governance that's making these investments?
Yeah, I'll give a perfect example of this, and this happened in Texas. They had an invasive boar species, a wild boar that they could not remove out of their city.
You have chickens, so it's why did the chicken cross the road? It's kind of
Actually, I had
mobility.
to deal with that.
So government tried to solve it with taxpayer dollars, didn't work, and they wasted a lot of money. Nonprofits tried to solve the problem, didn't work, wasted a lot of your money. Then an entrepreneur got a hold of it, started a company called Hella Bacon, where he would take individuals up in the air in a helicopter using a rail gun. I think it was a 50 cal gun, and go hunting, and made it an entrepreneurial experience where he would take business owners and entrepreneurs, individuals that wanted to help eliminate it while having fun. And it ended up not only solving the problem, but became a profitable business. And this is why private, for-profit, and entrepreneurs are really the ones making the biggest difference in the world.
Okay, here's another.
I just like the name, Hella Bacon.
That's a great.
That's a great name. I want that T-shirt.
So Tampa's not doing this, so don't put this in the news. So we are outfitting.
We're still recording,
We
but
are outfitting the Tampa short-term parking with LiDAR, and we were able to detect smoke, so we're replacing the smoke detectors. We're also replacing the red light, green light. We also can see when a car is parked over the line and should be surcharged. We're connecting it with a license plate reader. So now you can just drive in and drive out and pay through the app or get a bill online. So we're getting rid of, and then if a person is going from car to car at 2 a.m. in the morning, we're going to send a notification to the police officer that at 5 o'clock in the, or that on the fifth floor, this person's doing this. So where I'm going with this is that if you want to actually make a bunch more money without raising taxes, I told them, I said, look, Uber created demand-based pricing. Everything we pay for in life is based on price per square foot, except for when you go into a car park, and we can do volumetric pricing. So now all of a sudden, if I park next to a Hummer, that Hummer should pay more than if I'm in a small Tesla. And if they did volumetric pricing in each car park, they make a ton. That's their biggest money maker. But if you do volumetric pricing and just dial those numbers based on the size of the car, that's a huge money maker. And you guys have 32 car parks in the city, I believe.
I mean, what I really heard is that's a justification for me to go ahead and get the Porsche 911 because it's smaller. I said I'm saving money on parking, so I should get the Porsche. Great. So, is there any more questions from anybody? Okay, go ahead. We understand. PTSD, I got it. Initially, my first response before I pass it over to the gentleman is I think you're going to have the consequences of time, and it would take private industries to make it happen. The government structure, because we only have three actual cities. So the the reason why I'm responding to you is because I did a lot of business in Dade County. So you got to remember the biggest difference of structure here. Those are just named neighborhoods for consensus purposes. Versus in Dade County, there's actually 31 cities. So, and that's one of the three counties in the state of Florida that actually has a county mayor. So I think only having one city that controls this much land, you would have to get into a public private partnership to start outsourcing and building those things because I just don't think they have the manpower within their actual city structure with what they're doing. And there's so much to build right here because Miami Gardens controls the Hard Rock Stadium. People say Miami, but Hard Rock Casino is actually in Hollywood. So when you think about within three counties, there's almost 90 different mayors, city councils, and actual structure. You would have to kind of divide and conquer that way. And I don't know how you do that with just one mayor and one city council. That's a lot of work. That's my opinion.
And you're seeing this more in the for-profit private space with satellite locations. So they're affording individuals like yourself the opportunity to work from a co-working space, and that way there's a little bit of density in different micro ecosystems rather than having the whole team in one place at one time. And they're hopping around and kind of doing a rotation of, hey, we're going to bring the team to this satellite location versus this one. So that way it's more spread out horizontally. So that's a way around that and to circumvent it until some of these other tools become more prevalent and ubiquitous, like the EV tolls, which, by the way, we keep using some aviation jargon. It's basically an autonomous electronic uh, helicopter, drone, jet and where it makes it easier for you to have your own personal air taxi.
I kind of go back to the private thing. So I'm in Orange County, so I was in Dana Point, just south of Laguna Beach before I came here, and we had a private toll road, and that private toll road was owned by private investment. These guys were making hand over fist money, right? So who's to say that a Metro Transit Authority couldn't be built by a private organization, kept up by the private organization? I mean, you look at Brightline trains, and you sit in a Brightline train, you go into the bathroom of a Brightline train. Everything is almost like it was designed by someone who owned a hotel. And the guy that runs all of that came from the hotel space. So that's why you have nothing but dice and stuff in the bathroom. It's kept clean. They have a lot of accidents, yes. But all of that said, I think private industry, if you want to do it right, have private industry build a hub and spoke type model back out to Hillsborough County, back into the city, or areas where people are starting to spread out. And that way you're going to be assured that it's safe, it's clean, and there's not crime.
And actually, you helped with the closing statement. So we now know from our response, Tampa Bay is a car city, and we know it. Everybody in the room has felt it in some way, shape, or form, whether it was parking or traffic. So we do see now, it seems like the direction would be that we would have a policy for an investment from private industries, and that would change the next 5 years. With you guys being a key figure in this city now, even though Patrick, you're new, what do you think you want to leave as your imprint for the next 5 years as your contribution to Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I'm actually going to, at some point in the near future, I'm going to build I hate to say it like Disneyland, but Disneyland for dogs that have never had their forever home. So I am a huge dog lover. That's just one of the things that I want to give back. I don't want dogs to be in cages. I don't want them to be in, looking for love when dogs have just been nothing but kind in my life. It's beautiful.
For me, I mean, that's a tough act to follow, right? Everybody loves dogs. Uh, I love dogs too, but I would say becoming a beacon for what's possible and letting individuals know that, I call Tampa my home, even though I wasn't born here. And I want others to be inspired and motivated to do more, be more, lead more for their constituents, their families, their loved ones. And if I can represent some sort of beacon for that, then I feel like I've done my job.
Well, I think if you look at this from a psychological level, whether you guys said it or not, you want to lead this city with some form of compassion. And I think that means a lot. Entrepreneurs are not always just making money. They're normally solving problems, and it takes a lot of passion to do that. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being on this panel. And if you guys don't mind, give them a round of applause.